like hungry mouths beyond which terrible things happened. Sometimes you could hear dreadful screaming. But what was even scarier were the whispers in the night, the footsteps that were like a dull tolling, the moans that made you shudder. Some people said it was the ghosts of people who'd died during doctors' examinations. They infested the building, and at night you could glimpse them in their long, milky cloaks, gliding along the walls and sliding over window panes, creating sudden condensation. Or else you could see them in the constant flicker of the light bulbs. Gioele summoned up the courage. 9. He stopped outside an open door. Inside, the light was off, except for a faint glow at the far end, so the threshold seemed like a dark eye staring intently at him. Gioele looked up and in the semi-darkness read the inscription Sigismund Braun on the nameplate by the jamb. The door moved with an eerie squeak, perhaps because of an open window. Gioele couldn't help thinking that the stories about the ghosts might be true after all. He clutched the drawing paper against his chest to silence his heart, which was pounding in his throat. Instead of turning and running away, though, he stuck his nose into the liquid darkness of the laboratory. When they were on the train and he called out to the SS men through the window to practice his German, his mother often said, "You're too bright and too inquisitive a little boy, Gioele, and it'll get you into trouble. It'll bring you bad luck." Since he'd been in the camp, he had survived only because he was bright and inquisitive, and thanks to the genius that set him apart from the other twins, even his brother Gabriele. He was rewarded with lumps of sugar, chocolate, and every now and then a used toy. He and his brother slept in Block 10 with the other select few, and not in the Birkenau blocks, which he'd been told were cramped, dirty, and swarming with lice. They wore the clothes in which they'd arrived at the camp, and weren't forced to trek across miles of countryside from the Birkenau barracks to the Auschwitz laboratories, to be measured and studied. That was lucky, he thought. 10. Gioele gathered all his courage. With a single heroic stride, he stepped over the line between the half-light and the darkness in the room. It felt like leaping into a black, menacing abyss. You couldn't see anything inside. He searched for the switch, flicked it down, and a cold light flooded the room. It was so bright that he had to squint before he was able to see anything. He held his hand flat above his eyes to shield them and looked around. This laboratory was like all the others in the block. Beneath the flickering light, he recognized the granite floor and the white walls made of identical tiles. He let his gaze wander over the steel trolleys, the strange machinery, and the tiled tables. It lingered on the cabinets full of medicines, the shiny sink, and the photograph of the Führer hanging on the wall, looking at him with a grim expression. The window was open, but there was an odd smell in the air. It was neither disinfectant nor the formaldehyde the doctors used for preserving their exhibits. He thought he'd smelled it somewhere before, not only in the camp but also at home, in Bologna. Overwhelmed by the painful nostalgia of an elusive recollection, Gioele suddenly felt sad. Silently, he walked to the middle of the room. In some parts, the grout lines between the tiles were caked in blood. He looked up at the shelves and made out the clear jars in which floated a heart, a brain, and kidneys. There was a fetus swaying as though asleep in its mother's belly, and a basket of red apples that made Gioele feel hungry. He looked for a chair he could climb on to get one, but was distracted by the faint glow coming from the room leading into the laboratory. He approached, then went in. The office was lit by the soft amber light from a table lamp that projected the colorful flowers of the leaded glass on the wall. He could hear a buzz in the air, like an electrical lament that permeated the walls.